The sword that screams in battle, the cursed blade of ancient warriors. Welcome, traveler of ancient tales, to Tales Labyrinth, where history's darkest legends emerge from shadow. Today's journey reveals the terrifying story of the sword that screams in battle, a weapon that haunted warriors across ancient lands. Stay with us until the very end to discover how one blade changed the fate of kingdoms and struck fear into the bravest hearts. First, the forging of destiny. In the ancient kingdom of Crimson Mountains, where stone fortresses pierced storm-laden skies, master smiths labored in underground forges that glowed like captured suns. Their hammers rang against anvils in rhythmic precision, creating weapons that would determine the fates of nations and the survival of bloodlines. Among these craftsmen worked Casimir, a legendary smith whose calloused hands had forged countless blades for emperors and generals throughout 5 decades of relentless dedication. His workshop stood carved into mountain rock, its walls lined with weapons that gleamed with deadly promise beneath flickering torchlight and dancing shadows. The kingdom faced invasion from northern barbarian hordes, whose savage warriors swept across peaceful villages like locusts, devouring harvest fields beneath merciless desert winds. Desperate lords commissioned Casimir to create an ultimate weapon, offering him gold enough to purchase entire provinces and estates beyond measurement or imagination. Casimir accepted this sacred commission with solemn ritual, gathering the rarest materials from distant lands. Meteorite iron that fell from celestial realms during prophetic nights. He collected silver blessed by temple priests, dragon bone powder from forgotten tombs, and volcanic ash from mountains that touched the heavens themselves. For 40 days and nights, the ancient smith worked without rest, his forge burning hotter than normal flames as mystical incantations echoed through stone chambers. Sweat poured from his weathered brow as he folded the glowing metal 10,000 times, each fold binding earthly strength with supernatural forces. The blade emerged from final quenching with unnatural perfection, its edge sharper than winter wind, its balance defying natural laws of metalwork and physics. Strange symbols appeared along the fuller, glowing faintly with inner light that pulsed like a beating heart trapped within cold steel. When Casimir lifted the completed sword, a sound escaped its blade. Faint at first, then growing into a whisper that seemed almost human in tone. The master smith's hands trembled with sudden fear, recognizing that his greatest creation had transcended mortal craftsmanship into something far more dangerous. Second, the spirit's binding. General Aldrich, the kingdom's greatest military commander, arrived at the mountain forge wearing battle-scarred armor adorned with medals from 20 victorious campaigns across hostile territories. His presence commanded respect from every soldier and citizen who witnessed his towering frame and penetrating gaze that missed no tactical detail. The warrior examined the sword with expert assessment, testing its weight and balance with movements perfected through decades of endless combat against countless enemies. His scarred fingers traced the mysterious symbols etched along the blade, feeling power coursing through the metal like captured lightning seeking release. Casimir warned the general of strange occurrences during the forging process. Unexplained sounds, shadows moving independently of firelight, and dreams of ancient battlefields soaked red. The smith's voice carried genuine concern as he described how the blade seemed to possess awareness beyond what any weapon should contain. Aldrich dismissed these warnings with the confident laugh of a man who had faced death countless times without flinching before enemy spears and arrows. He secured the sword to his belt, its scabbard crafted from dragon leather and reinforced with bands of consecrated silver that gleamed coldly. That night, within his fortress chamber illuminated by oil lamps casting dancing shadows across stone walls, Aldrich experienced a vision of overwhelming intensity and terror. A warrior from ancient times appeared before him, wearing armor styles forgotten for millennia, his ghostly form radiating centuries of accumulated rage. The spirit spoke in a language dead for generations. Yet somehow Aldrich understood every word as clearly as his native tongue spoken since childhood. The ghost had been a legendary champion betrayed by cowardly allies, murdered through poison rather than honorable combat upon blood-stained battlegrounds. His soul had wandered between worlds for countless years, seeking a weapon worthy of channeling his eternal fury against those who dishonored warrior codes. Now bound to this perfect blade through mystical forces and Casimir's unknowing rituals, the spirit would never rest until enemy blood satisfied ancient vengeance. Third, baptism in blood. Dawn broke crimson across the eastern mountains as Aldrich's army assembled on vast plains where morning mist clung to earth like wandering ghosts, reluctant. 10,000 warriors stood in disciplined formations, their shields locked together, forming impenetrable walls, their spears pointing skyward like a forest of deadly metal. The enemy approached from the north, barbarian hordes numbering twice Aldrich's forces, their war cries echoing across the valley like thunder preceding devastating storms. They wore furs and leather armor decorated with bones of defeated enemies, their weapons crude but effective through sheer brutal strength. Aldrich raised the new sword high above his head, and for the first time in battle, its true nature manifested with terrifying clarity. A scream erupted from the blade, not metal scraping metal, but a human voice filled with rage accumulated across centuries of supernatural imprisonment. The sound paralyzed both armies momentarily, experienced warriors freezing in shock as the supernatural shriek cut through morning air like nothing heard before. Birds fled from nearby trees, and horses reared in panic, their primal instincts recognizing something fundamentally wrong with natural order and reality. Then Aldrich charged forward, and the possessed sword seemed to guide his movements with skill beyond even his legendary abilities and battlefield experience. His strikes flowed with impossible precision, each swing cutting through enemy armor as though slicing through silk rather than hardened leather and metal. The sword's screaming intensified. With each enemy it felled, the spirit within growing stronger as blood soaked the blade's thirsty steel surface. Warriors on both sides watched in horror as Aldrich moved through enemy ranks like a demon unleashed from underworld depths seeking revenge. Enemy soldiers who approached him died before completing their attacks, the sword moving with precognitive awareness as though anticipating every strike before occurrence. Bodies fell around the general in growing circles of carnage, and the screaming blade drank deeply of blood spilled upon ancient earth. Fourth, the screaming terror. Word of the screaming sword spread across kingdoms like wildfire consuming dry summer grasslands, carried by terrified survivors and traveling merchants who witnessed battles. Tales grew with each retelling. Some claimed the blade glowed with hellish light. Others swore it moved independently of its wielder's intentions. Aldrich's army won every engagement, but the general changed with each battle fought beneath scorching suns and cold rain that washed blood away. His eyes grew distant and haunted, as though watching scenes invisible to others around him, and he spoke less frequently in council meetings. The sword now screamed constantly during combat, its unholy voice mixing with the clash of weapons and the cries of dying warriors beneath uncaring skies. Only when thoroughly drenched in enemy blood would the spirit briefly quiet, satisfied temporarily by the carnage it had orchestrated through possessed metal. Soldiers whispered fearfully in their camps at night, gathered around fires that pushed back darkness, but could not dispel the supernatural dread permeating their ranks. They spoke of seeing ghostly figures surrounding Aldrich during battles, ancient warriors fighting alongside him as transparent specters from forgotten ages and lost civilizations. The general himself barely slept, tormented by visions of the sword's original owner, seeing through ancient eyes the betrayal that birthed such eternal rage. He experienced the poison burning through ghostly veins, felt the humiliation of death without honor, understood the curse binding spirit to blade. Enemy kingdoms attempted to negotiate peace, offering tribute and territorial concessions to avoid facing the screaming terror that had become legendary throughout known lands. Their ambassadors arrived at Aldrich's fortress, bearing chests of gold, precious gems, and offers of marriage alliances binding rival dynasties together. But the sword would not permit peace, its spirit demanding constant battle until the world ran red with blood of those it considered enemies. Aldrich found himself riding to war against his own wishes, compelled by the weapon that had become both his greatest asset and inescapable curse. Fifth, legacy of the cursed blade. Years passed, and Aldrich conquered territories beyond his kingdom's wildest ambitions, his name spoken with reverence and terror from distant desert lands to frozen northlands. Yet victory brought no joy to the general, only deeper entanglement with the spirit bound within screaming metal that never truly rested. Wise men and mystics attempted to break the curse through elaborate rituals performed in sacred temples filled with incense smoke and chanted prayers. They drew protective circles with blessed salt, recited exorcism prayers in ancient languages, and burned rare herbs that supposedly drove away malevolent spirits. All efforts failed completely, for the spirit's binding had been woven into the sword's very creation through powerful forces neither Casimir nor anyone else fully understood. The weapon had become something beyond natural law, existing in the space between mortal reality and supernatural realms where normal rules dissolved. On his final campaign, leading armies through mountain passes where winter snow fell thick and treacherous, Aldrich finally confronted his ultimate truth and destiny. He could not defeat what lived within the blade, could not escape the partnership formed through blood and battle across years of conquest. Standing atop a mountain peak where wind howled like lost souls seeking rest, he made a decision that would echo through history and legend. Rather than let another warrior claim the cursed blade and continue its cycle of supernatural violence, he would end the sword's mortal chapter. With final strength gathered from decades of military discipline and warrior pride, Aldrich hurled the screaming sword into a bottomless crevasse that split the mountain's heart. The weapon fell through darkness, its scream fading slowly into distant echoes that reverberated through stone and ice like dying thunder. The blade disappeared into depths unreachable by mortal hands, but legends persist that it waits still in eternal darkness, screaming softly for warriors brave or foolish enough to seek ultimate power at the cost of their immortal souls and eternal peace promised by death's final embrace. The legend of the sword that screams in battle reminds us that power always demands its price, and some weapons forge bonds that transcend mortal understanding. This ancient tale reveals how supernatural forces intertwined with human ambition, creating a legacy that haunted generations and reshaped kingdoms through cursed metal and eternal vengeance. Thank you for journeying through this dark legend with Tales Labyrinth. If this story captivated your imagination, please honor us with a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to Tales Labyrinth and activate notifications to explore more forgotten legends, ancient mysteries, and historical tales that bridge our modern world with humanity's mythological past. Until our next journey into history's shadows, may your path be blessed and your stories eternal.